from compliance to RBIA. That was very difficult. Another change in mindset. As you know, compliance, we have our predetermined audit plan, audit program, and our checklist. We go in, we check the box, and then not much interaction with our key stakeholders, our business owners. Risk-based audit, the focus is on understanding the business, collaborating, engaging with key stakeholders. You have to understand the business. You have to understand what the key goals are. If you don't understand the goals, or if there are no goals, then risk. Okay, so in order to focus on risk, which is what this approach is all about, focusing on risk and the key areas, you have to know the goals and you have to understand the business. And in order to add value, if you don't go through that process, then you're not going to add the value. And we are getting some feedback from, not many, but from key stakeholders. And they said, what's the difference between compliance and RBIA? We don't see the difference. And I can bet why they're saying that we're not engaging enough or spending the time to understand the business or ask the right questions. So, the other key element is building that relationship. You heard Danny talking about building a relationship and how important that is. We had Judith talking about asking the right questions and listening. All of that is so important with RBIA. And if we're doing that right, then our value to the partnership is going to be enhanced. So we have Felix, Lorena, and Rachel, who are going to share with us their experience with RBIA. And where's Chris?
Oh, Chris is here.
Okay. All right. So, all right, Chris, you wanna?
Okay. Share what? So what we would do now? We would ask. We would look at 3 questions primarily through the lenses of these 3 folks here. The first one is what is working well with RBIA and why? So that would be the first one. The second is what have been some of the ongoing challenges with RBIA. The third is challenges and opportunities. And the third is what are some of the support solutions or tools and resources that we need to strengthen the RBIA process. So those are the 3 questions that would be answered by these 3 in a short period of time. And then we would open this up to the floor for questions, right? I could hear from some of you that you didn't have time the previous session. So if you have questions on RIAD, probably towards the end after RBIA, if we have time, we could take those questions as well. All right? Thank you. Hope you heard me, right?
Check.
Who wants to go first? Ijana, would you?
I've asked Eduardo to translate.
Translate.
Can I leave the class?
Sit down.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. This is Rachel from WBA India Audit team. So I'm going to just represent our RBIA journey, how we had experienced RBIA as India team. Moving forward, just want to give a glimpse of how India looks in terms of WBA operations. You see that map, I don't think it's very clear at the back. You see some spots here and there. That's how we are widespread. Red spots, if you can jot it down. So those red spots are the areas in which we work around across the country. So it does have a wide range of coverage. It's one of our challenges as well as an opportunity. So as we learned yesterday, it covers both a multiplier effect. It demands a multiplier effect, but couldn't afford a diminisher effect, of course. So we had to be a multiplier to cover all this wide range of operations. So with that background, I just go on to the next. Getting into the current requirement of how RBIA started in India. So way back in FY13, we started with pilot testing in 2 ADPs in 13 and 14. But the actual rollout happened in Q3 FY14, as you can see there. And from the pilot testing, I guess we have been covering 5 major functions of the organization. India per se had 12 major prime functions, of which we cover till today 5 prime functions in each of our audits. Those 5 are jotted there. Finance, program management, procurement, SEM, and child protection and child sponsorship. Of course, starting with the positives first. Thumbs up points for how IA views it, how internal audit department views it. One is we got to have an extreme coverage or excessive coverage of all the operations of an AP or ADP for that matter. We are not just focusing on small pockets of the ADP, but putting our hands in every pocket of the ADP operations. That is one good goal. And yes, work satisfaction for an auditor. I'm not just looking into small areas. My coverage is big. I'm able to give an ADP rating or a project rating based upon first identifying the risk in that area and then seeing whether the controls are operating effectively, if not given opinion, recommendation for it. So I ensure as an auditor that all these are met with every of my finding and recommendation in each of the 5 pockets that I put my hand in. So that is another plus point. The third one is, I would like to say we as India had a novel gesture happening way back in FY14. The thing is, when we started RBIA, we were very much in a baby steps in terms of identifying risk. So we as audit team engaged with each of the risk owners across the various departments, and we enabled them, or we pushed them, I should rather say that. So we were just back enablers to make them to identify the risk and jot it down in a risk register. Most of us know it, the tool which we happen to use, the MRAPs. We were making them to populate the MRAP for each of the function, and that by which ultimately made India by say to stand strong in ERM of what it is today. So it could have it had been a starting point then with the population of risk register. So yes, we can tap on our side that saying that we were the initiatives of making the population of MRAPs for each of the prime audit functions. So that was the third plus point. Yes, the fourth plus point, we all know how risk maturity works. The 5 cycles of how the organization views its risk maturity. Back then when WBA India, it was just a risk defined organization. We know what is the risk. Auditors go and test the controls and the monitoring controls so that we can give an opinion on the ADP. But now after 3 years or 4 years of implementation, we are pretty much confident to say we are not no more risk defined, but we are risk matured in some aspects, and of course risk enabled also in one of the prime functions that is given there, that is finance. So no more do we see critical audit findings in finance. So that makes us to be positive at saying that yes, we have matured from risk defined organization to risk mature and risk enabled. We are still marching towards risk enabled for all 5 prime functions that we are testing on. That's the 4th point. 5th one, of course, excessive coverage, extended scope. The new 2 areas that we happen to put our hands in is sponsorship and child protection. We happen to see the intricacies of how the operation works. So that was an extended scope on our audit. So those were the 5 points. Before I move on to the negatives, IIGS can I request any SAPO friends here, because it's a global crowd which is sitting here. Can I request any SAPO friends who sees similarities in this kind of pros, or if at all you have anything extra to add on to the positives, will be a welcome. Any volunteer? Because we all operate in the same geographical region, so it would be good enough to share our positives. So, okay, fine. Okay. Moving on to the next thumbs up point on the client view. Okay. Now, till then we have been covering the auditor's view. Now it's on the client view. They started to have risk-focused discussions, both during the process of engagement and at the exit of the engagement. They happened to have a risk-focused view. They started to think in which the auditor points his issues on, his or her issues on. They also started to think in line with them, not holistically, but still, yes, they have. Next aspect is whole rating. We cover all the operations of the ADP, and hence we give a holistic ADP rating or a project rating. That is another plus point for them. And department-wise or function-wise rating, because each of the ADP or audit program or auditable entity do cover all the 5 prime functions. So in that case, all 5 prime functions-wise rating is also possible because of that. So because of RBIA, that's another noted advantage. And next one is, of course, distributed responsibility. Everyone had to own whatever they do. They can't push the blame or push it to only the manager side or the top level people. They had to own it. So that is an advantage that we see on. Of course, moving to the cons and challenges, we do have challenges. Risk perception, as I said, though they started to think in risk angle, but the perception still differs between the auditor and the client. We don't get in terms of how we rate the risk, particularly in issues. Those differences are still persisting even after 3 or 4 years of implementation. Next is extensive detailing of controls. It's not that controls and tests. It's not that we are avoiding these excessive detailing of controls. It's just that, yes, we understand it's good for the organization to have it all detailed out in the manner that is required. But from the client end, we do get resistance in terms of their time allocation for all this detailing. They are not very open enough to provide the time for all this and give us in the way which we require. So that is another minus point from the client end. And yes, resource shortage, a persistent problem in India. We are not able to allocate people for the required assignments, hence because of which the existing auditors are overloaded at times. As a team, we foresee or require these support from GIA and these tools from GIA. Of course, we do have some tools, maybe I'll just talk about it. First is support from GIA to give a direction or instruction to the management saying that risk identification and mapping of the controls to the risk is an responsibility of the management and not of the auditor. Because as of now, they view it's a responsibility of the auditor. Technically speaking, it's the client's job, but which they fail to see it as. So, recommended, instruction, or that could help them to go about with the job. That could be the one requirement from our end. And the next one is customized online tools for both, including GRC as well as RBIA learning. Because this being resource crunch being a major problem in India, so we happen to have new auditors coming into the board every time. So learning process for them takes time. We do have GRC, the recorded items of what anyone has been doing with us. So Apart from that, it's not very elaborate. For the newcomers, short time course. So that would be a major time-saving activity within the country to equip the new auditors who come in. So with that said, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm not going to have a PowerPoint. Sorry. I just want to share, my experiences, kind of in the flow with my experience with RBIA so far. So that is why I thought that just having some notes and speaking is better than having a PowerPoint. So RBIA, as Audley said, is one of those powerful initiatives that GIA initiated to make our work better and to help us add more value to the ministry. This morning we talked about Riyadh, RBIA we are talking about now, and then a couple of others which will be covered later. The experience from West Africa is that RBIA is generally accepted across all levels, regional level, NO level, and field level. And when we were implementing RBIA, we took advantage to also do some capacity building in the field. Because we realized that we're talking about risk, but the offices and the staff in the field didn't know a lot about risk management. So we kind of were ahead of the game. So what we did was that anytime we were having an audit, we also scheduled some training in risk management. So we kind of trained them on risk management just to be able to help them appreciate risk management as a whole, and then how RBIA is coming in to be focused on risk management. So I would say generally there is acceptance of the idea of risk-based integrated audit in West Africa, both within the audit team and then also our stakeholders. One other thing that I'm seeing is a better understanding of the ministry. Because as Audley said, if you don't know the ministry, you don't know the business, there is no way you can identify the risk. So increasingly, the team is working on improving their understanding of the business. And that is really very helpful. And we are doing that also through the engagements that we have with the stakeholders. Because really, you can't understand the business in any other way apart from engaging the people who are involved in the ministry directly. So there is enhanced engagement, comparing RBIA to the compliance, which I'm very much conversant with because I was there at the time. There is an enhanced level of engagement between the audit team and then the stakeholders. And one other thing which is beautiful about RBIA, as I see it, is how we're able to link our audit findings with the business objectives. I mean, if you look at the flow, we start with the business objective, identify the risk, what are the controls that have been designed and implemented to mitigate the risk, and then we test the control design and the effectiveness. So at the end of the flow, when we are coming up with audit findings, we are able to link those audit findings with specific business objectives. And that is very powerful. I mean, in terms of communicating to management, what is the danger of not accomplishing your objectives if you don't pay attention to these findings that are coming out in an audit. And I think that's really very good. And the other thing that I'm seeing is that with RBIA, we are having fewer audit findings compared to what we used to have under compliance. I remember those days, in the GC audit, and I used to do GC audit. You will come up with an audit report and it's like a book. So he would be so many appendices because we reported everything. a lot of compliance issues, a lot of low-risk issues. With RBIA, because we are focusing on the key risk, the issues are less, and we don't also focus on the low-risk findings as well. We may discuss them with the business owners, but in our final report, we don't bring those in there. So we have fewer issues compared to the time we're doing compliance. And another thing that I need to point out, as I see happening in West Africa, is the capacity of the audit team. Remember those days, we were called finance auditors, or operations auditors, or food auditors. Now we are auditors, and we are doing all of that stuff. We are doing finance, we are doing the food component, we are also doing operations. And one of the interesting observations we made when we first introduced RBI in West Africa is that we had a significant increase in operations-related findings compared to finance findings. I don't know where it happened in other regions, but that was very interesting because we used not to do a lot of ops in the field. We had ops at GC, but GC was not very regular in the field. So at the field level, we didn't really cover operations that much. When we started RBIA, the trend changed. We started having a lot of operations-related issues compared to finance issues. I think the part of the reason of that was, the whole idea of risk, which we were looking into the operations risk as well, and not just finance risk. And that was very informative to our business owners. When we present that kind of picture to them, it kind of communicated to them that, hey, it's not just finance here, but even our main operations as well, we need to pay attention. And remember this beautiful tool, MRAP, that we developed at the initial stages to implement RBIA. One of the jokes that we had in West Africa was that you want to do anything, just MRAP it, So in terms of how RBIA is going and why, this is the area that I wanted to cover. By way of challenges, as I see that we still need a lot of improvement in our root cause analysis. We have become better compared to where we are coming from, but I think we still need to improve in that area. And that area is so critical because there's a direct link to the audit recommendation. So if you don't do a good job in root cause analysis, then your recommendations are not going to be very useful. And so we need to do that. One of the things I see is we don't investigate a lot in terms of what the root causes are. A lot of times we tend to just go to the management and ask them, what do you think is the reason why this finding is coming? And I'm not sure they are giving us the real story sometimes. And we are not trying to go deeper and then get supporting evidence to even support what they are telling us in terms of the cause. And if you look at some of the issues also, we need to even invest some more time, perform some additional procedures, investigate what is really giving rise, to those findings. But I don't think we have been having time. I think time is one of our problems. I would just want to recommend that it is a very critical area that we shouldn't keep at the back end, and if we don't have time, we just kind of pass over it. We need to really find the time, investigate the causes of the findings that we are getting, and then be able to ground our recommendations on those causes. I believe when we do that, we can really begin to make significant impact. Another area that I think we need to do a good job is, we are engaging with management, getting their input as far as key risks are concerned. And sometimes I also get the sense that they are not really leading us into what is the key risk. And if we don't, on our own, try to do a lot of research on the area that we're auditing and kind of come up with, the more relevant risk, we may be dealing with some issues that are really not issues as far as risk is concerned in our audit. Because, think about it. If our business owners know that there's a problem here, and they know that if you go and audit that area, you're going to come up with some tough issues, serious issues, and people normally don't like the serious issues. So it's good to engage, but we need to be very careful, what feedback we're getting from management, how we are corroborating those feedback with our own independent research. And Audley made this point that I want to make now. There's a feedback from some of our stakeholders that what is the difference between RBIA and compliance. Audley mentioned some of them, which is the quality of our engagement. But also, I believe, if you look at our audit report, there's a section with the criteria where we try to reference to finance manual, grant regulations, and other policies. I think we are not doing a good job explaining that aspect to them so that they understand, because they used to see this under compliance. So if we continue to have it under RBIA, they are misunderstanding that, this is just same thing, given a different name. So we need to, in our engagement, we need to do a good job in that area. In terms of what support and solutions that are needed, one of the things that I also observe, which can fall under the challenges as well, is sometimes the organization is changing very fast. There are a lot of initiatives coming all the time. But audit always is not at the front end in terms of understanding these initiatives. And one of the key requirements on the RBIA is understanding the business. If you don't understand the business, you can't do a good job. So if we are not at the front end, understanding the initiatives that are coming up in the partnership, then we have an issue there. And sometimes things are happening but we don't know. Just last week, during the planning of one of our Riyadh audits, we engaged with the regional sponsorship guy, and he was telling me a single step is going to be changed. I didn't know a single step was going to be changed. Something else is coming. 2020, I don't know whether it is me or it's the whole GIA, but we really didn't participate that strongly in 2020, especially the audit perspective. How is audit going to respond as far as 2020 is concerned, OP 2020 is concerned? How is it going to impact our audit approach? In this 2030, sorry, not 2020, OP 2030, we haven't really, as a department, sat down, think through it as a group, come out with, our response from the audit perspective. How it's going to impact our audit, and all of that. I know that in this, one of the things that we are addressing in our individual regional groups is how audit is going to respond to 2030. But I was thinking this should have come much earlier. Yesterday when we were listening to Jemima, there were a lot of revelations in there which I thought I should have known this much earlier. My recommendation in that area would be we need to find a way of, getting us at the front end as far as these initiatives are concerned, and then do something about them. I know there's a lot that has happened in Horizon, but I have zero knowledge about what is going on in Horizon, to be honest with you. So that is, that's something we need to think about. I think the trainings that we have, the ones that are coordinated by Rian, is a good step, but we need to, be more, to do that more, especially those, emerging and developing areas that are coming up in our partnership. And then, of course, we need some continued refresher in RBIA, because this is the game in town now, and we just have to continue building our capacity in it. So these are the few comments that that I had as far as RBIA in West Africa is concerned. Thanks.
Hello. My ¿Qué ha ido bien en auditoría basada en riesgo? Quiero empezar diciendo que yo fui auditada por varios años con auditoría de cumplimiento.
Well, I want to start by saying that I've been audited for several years now with a compliance approach.
Y yo sabía qué es lo que los auditores iban a revisar cada año.
And I basically knew what the auditors were going to ask me every single year.
Porque las revisiones eran las mismas, los riesgos eran los mismos, los que se revisaban todos los años.
Well, basically because they reviewed the same thing, the risks were the same, and well, I already know the answers, right?
¿Qué ha ido bien con la auditoría basada en riesgos?
Well, but what have been good about risk-based?
Ahora tenemos informes de alto impacto.
Now we have higher impact reports.
Hay muchos riesgos que antes no se veían y que ahora se están viendo con las auditorías basadas en riesgo.
Oh, and one of the main things that there's a lot of things, risk, that we didn't solve before, that we didn't see before, and now that they are popping up and they're under our scope.
Pasamos de una auditoría prácticamente enfocada en finanzas únicamente a una auditoría diversificada. Una auditoría que ahora ve seguridad corporativa, una auditoría que ahora ve recursos humanos, una auditoría que ahora ve recaudación de fondos.
And one of the main changes in this idea is that we used to mainly focus on finance, and now we're looking at fundraising, marketing, child sponsorship, everything that we used to basically not see.
Esto ha permitido que nuestras oficinas nos vean con una mejor imagen. Ahora ven auditoría como una actividad que agrega valor.
And this has helped us basically with our image and how do we sell ourselves, because now they don't only see us like the finance guy and the police guy, but they also see us like something more integral, more altogether.
Tenemos comités de auditoría que se han mostrado muy satisfechos porque tenemos observaciones diferentes, observaciones que por muchos años no se habían visto.
And now the committee is also quite happy because they are now seeing things that they used not to see, like findings not related to only finance.
Nuestros clientes también se sienten satisfechos porque tenemos un mayor acercamiento con ellos, porque identificamos los riesgos con ellos y les ayudamos a que ellos puedan entender por qué estamos observando eso, porque esto les va a ayudar a ellos a cumplir sus objetivos, y ese es el enfoque de auditoría.
Now our clients are even happier because the finding is not just us saying this is bad, but this, if you fix this, if you improve this, it will be even better for you. You will achieve your objectives, and they see us as something that actually adds value.
Obviamente, esto con la administración algunas veces no es muy bien visto, porque generalmente los auditores damos o decimos aquellas cosas que no están bien y que necesitan mejorar.
Well, this actually has helped us a lot because, well, historically we used to only say, this is bad, right? So we were related like to the bad news. Here comes Audit, here comes bad news, right?
Pero esto es bueno porque estos son los desafíos que tenemos como auditores para poder demostrarles que la auditoría basada en riesgos ayuda a la administración a poder enfocarse, a poder identificar aquellas cosas que podrían afectar el cumplimiento de sus objetivos.
So, but this challenge, this change of mindset of how they're seeing us, is a really good challenge because now we have the opportunity to really sell the value that we actually add, seeing that our engagement, our efforts are mainly focused on achieving the organization's objectives.
Con esto quiero introducir a cuáles son los desafíos que tenemos como para implementar completamente auditoría basada en riesgo.
But with this introduction, I would like to start talking about the challenges that we have doing RBIA, introducing RBIA.
Dentro de los desafíos está un mayor involucramiento y conocimiento de los diferentes procesos de la organización.
Well, the first is we need to have more engagement, more involvement in the different processes and changes in the organization.
En la medida de que nosotros nos involucremos más y conozcamos más de los procesos, vamos a poder ayudarles más a la administración a poder identificar sus riesgos.
As we get more involved and more engaged and more in the meat and breed of the processes, we will even add more value and help our clients even more and the organization at the end of the day.
Pero necesitamos ser más ágiles.
But we need to be, what's the word? More nimble, more fast, more fast changing.
Necesitamos ser más eficientes como auditores internos.
To be more efficient as internal auditors.
Para tener la oportunidad con las administraciones de decirles los riesgos a tiempo.
So we can have and we can say what is going on to improve and raise our hands in a timely manner.
La oportunidad de nuestros reportes debe de ser una clave, es un desafío.
The timeliness of our reports is a challenge. It's quite a good opportunity.
¿Por qué? Porque si tenemos un informe, un riesgo importante, pero lo reportamos 6 meses después, el riesgo ya no es importante.
Well, why? Because if we have a finding, if we have a gap, a breach, or a risk, but we report it 6 months later, well, it's not that really relevant anymore, right?
Ese es uno de nuestros mayores desafíos como auditores internos, en la auditoría basada en riesgo.
In my opinion, that is one of the biggest challenges as auditor, as risk-based internal auditors.
¿Qué necesitamos como soporte?
What do we need?
Necesitamos independencia del presupuesto.
Oh, I think everybody understood that. We need budget independence.
¿Por qué?
Why?
Porque eso nos ayudará a identificar aquellos recursos y poder orientarlos mejor como auditoría interna en lo que más se necesita.
Because this will enable us to really focus our main resources in what matters and basically optimize resource allocation in the sense of risk.
Necesitamos también cambios controlados, bien administrados.
Okay, the second thing we need is organize and control change. Internal, yeah, in the department. Yeah, internal change, meaning changes, control and organize for our department.
Esto nos va a ayudar a enfocarnos mejor en nuestro trabajo.
This will help us focus on our job.
Necesitamos también especializarnos
We need to also specialization
en diversas áreas a las cuales nosotros vamos a estar enfrentándonos.
in the different areas that we're going to be engaged in.
Y necesitamos mayor compromiso.
Oh, that's good. And we also need commitment.
En involucrarnos en las nuevas iniciativas de la organización. No podemos estar aislados de los cambios organizacionales. Necesitamos involucrarnos más en la Estrategia 2030, en las nuevas iniciativas que la organización tiene. Cuando nosotros hagamos eso, vamos a estar dando un mayor valor agregado a nuestra organización.
Commitment in the sense that we need to be involved, really engaged in the changes that are coming in the organization. My example is 2020, not 2030. And different organizational changes. That way we will be part of the discussion and will be in the discussion and not in the
Thanks.
That's it.
Thank you. Any questions for
these three or any questions in general on RBIA? We have a few minutes. Okay. Jacob.
Ujambo, I think I also need a translator. Yeah, I have just a quick question. Number one is, based on the recent observations from the external auditors on our work, there was a need of a recommendation that we need to consider surprise audits. In RBIA, the concept is rapport. We build the rapport with the client before we conduct the audit. I just want to hear from our talented panelist how this will be rolled out. And then the second question I wanted to ask is, considering especially Felix that had both phases, the compliance audit and the RBIA, I would want to understand within your region, how was the fraud prevalence during the compliance audit as compared with the current RBIA approach, because it appears that the rate has increased. So I just wanted to find out whether our beloved RBIA approach is helping us in one of the objectives of internal audit is deterrent nature of the fraud, whether we're achieving that. Thank you.
Okay. Let me take the second question first. Yeah, there could be a number of factors that would account for the apparent increase in fraud. If you look at the level of awareness in fraud detection, it has increased, at least from what I know, and I've been around for a long time, so I think I know quite a lot. I mean, if you look at the early years, we were not this aggressive in terms of sensitizing everybody about fraud mitigation, reporting fraud. We didn't have the integrity hotline where people can go in there and then report fraud anonymously. So what I'm saying is that we have done a lot in terms of raising awareness for people to report fraud. And having done that, there is a likelihood that many more people are likely to report fraud than we used to have. If you look at the side of leadership these days is much more open to address fraud issues and fraud risk. So, people are not like, I remember when I first joined World Vision and we started talking about fraud, there were people like, fraud in a Christian organization? It was like, this is unheard of. I mean, it can't happen. Some kind of denial. It's not the same now. Now we have kind of accepted that, hey, we are all human and fallen short of the grace of God. So this thing is real, it's out there. And leadership is more interested and aggressive in dealing with the fraud risk. So I'm not surprised that we are having more fraud cases. I'm not even sure whether we are having more fraud cases. But I mean, just granted that what you're saying is the case, I wouldn't be surprised that we are having more, because there's a lot more reporting that is going on through the ethics point, through the sensitization that we are having with our workers, even our vendors. Some of the offices, if you look at the contracts, they have fraud clauses in the contracts, and then they hold the vendors responsible to report to World Vision if there's any fraud-related issue. So I think we have opened, the fraud sanitization wider. A lot more people are in the net in terms of reporting fraud, and I think it's a good thing that people are responding, all our stakeholders are responding, and then bringing fraud to the fore so that we can deal with it. Because we really don't have to deny that it is not there. One thing that I must point out though is that in terms of really big, high-profile fraud issues, for the past couple of years, I haven't heard about them. Maybe they're dead, but I haven't heard about them. But I remember those days we had really huge ones. I quoted the example of Liberia was a big one, something that even led to prosecutions in the U.S.